Welcome to Mentor. I'm Marco Bertozzi.
And I'm Rachel Ford.
We are the founders of the TheZoo.London Consultant Collective and Executive Search.
And our podcast is all about sharing the hard-earned wisdom from world-class leaders who've been there, seen that, done that, and they're here to guide you with their wisdom.
And they're not insights you're just going to find in any old book.
No, they are insights from real-life stories that you can use in real life. Today, who have we got coming up?
We've got what was truly inspirational, Martha Lane Fox.
Baroness
Baroness
of Soho.
What a cool title.
Yeah, I'd like to be Baroness of Soho. Yes, please. And yeah, I mean, as you can imagine, anyone that knew her from her last minute days, we bought shares in last minute, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
2000,
I'm going to go and check my. I'm going to see if I can.
I think we faxed it through to our broker or whatever it was at the time. But as you can imagine, lots and lots of advice. One of our final questions actually asked for, what would you advise to young entrepreneurs starting today? And she had 4 pieces of advice. The first one was plan for tomorrow, not today. So 2026, plan for 2028, not 2024. And then you'll have to listen to the later for the other 3.
Martha was also someone who wasn't an advocate for the whole bring your whole self to work. She felt like you should definitely hold something back. I think in her early days, I think she did put herself out there with the press, with all of that side of things, and probably the combination of those, the press intrusion and so on makes her think twice about how much
giving everything up,
giving it all out.
And another very inspirational and good for us that she didn't have a plan. So another successful guest.
Thank God for that.
With no 5-year plan. Just focus on what's in front of you and work hard. So I think we can all relate to that. So I think we'll get Martha in. But first, a little message about our sponsors. Hey, Marco, when you think of a great mentor, what words come to your mind?
I think smart, definitely supportive, obviously wise and experienced for sure.
Yeah, I think the same really. And, someone knowledgeable who pushes your ideas beyond your first ideas.
That's why we chose Viral Tribe, because they've helped us on our podcasting journey.
Yeah, you could say they've been our podcasting mentors, couldn't you?
They
have been our ultimate support system, helping us with creative ideas, production. And with state-of-the-art studios like we're in today in the heart of Soho, London, they're not just brilliant at what they do, but they make the whole process seamless and stress-free.
And they work with some of the biggest creators, producers and brands, making everything from chart-topping shows to branded entertainment.
So if you're thinking about launching a video, an audio, a live podcast, make Viral Tribe your podcasting mentor.
Drop them a line at hello@viraltribe.co.uk, and if you quote mentor, they'll give you 20% off your first 3 bookings.
So what are you waiting for? What are you
waiting
for? Today, we are incredibly lucky to have Martha Lane Fox, Baroness Lane Fox of Soho, no less, a British entrepreneur, philanthropist, public servant and digital leader. Now, Martha, I've got quite a long intro for you here, so please do bear with me because I'm going to read it so I don't miss anything out. But Martha first rose to prominence co-founding lastminute.com in 1998 alongside Brent Hoberman, turning it into one of Europe's leading online travel and lifestyle businesses and taking it to public during the dot-com boom. The company was later sold in 2005. After her entrepreneurial success, Martha shifted into public service. She served as the UK's government's digital champion between 2009 and 2013, helping establish the government's digital service and champion digital literacy and inclusion across the UK. In 2013, she was created a life peer in the House of Lords and as a crossbencher, becoming its youngest female member at the time. And she often speaks on digital inclusion, technology policy and economic opportunity from that platform. If that wasn't enough, Martha has also held numerous non-exec and board roles, including Chancellor of the Open University, President of the British Chambers of Commerce, and director roles at global brands such as Chanel, British Airways and Multiverse. She has also been director of technology platforms, including Twitter, and chairs charitable causes focused on criminal justice, education and digital skills. Martha is a passionate advocate for digital inclusion, ethical technology, lifelong learning, and women's leadership, frequently speaking on the need for wider access to digital opportunity and responsible tech innovation. And in 2023, she was elected an honorary fellow of the Royal Academy of Engineering. So you can see why I had to read that out, Martha. That's some quite impressive.
It feels like you should say established lastminute.com in 1898, not 1998. It was like so long ago.
Yeah. Well, we bought shares, actually. I remember we were in Publicis.
Whole £135 worth.
That's correct.
Yeah, and we faxed them through. I've no idea where those shares ever went because we didn't have digital storage then. They're on a piece of paper somewhere. But it was a big moment. We remember it incredibly well.
Yeah, we just in the sort of media agency landscape, I was working. We just started a digital media agency within Zenith, so it was like there was two of us, and we were working with Last Minute back then, and it's funny. It takes you back to those sort of times when even in the media agency landscape, everyone's like, "What are you doing? Why have you moved from TV to digital?"
Yeah.
But
trailblazing indeed.
I thought I was totally nuts. When it comes from Brent, a lot of the idea, but I'd been lucky enough to work a bit in technology and consulting before that, but I cannot overestimate how far away people would move from me at parties when I say I was starting a dot-com business. Like, it's like, what? Who even are you? What has happened to you? What is going on?
And you were in your 20s. But I mean, you were like an ambitious trailblazer in your mid-20s.
No, I think when you're 25, you really don't have a clue about anything, do you?
Well, this is it. Yeah, just feel the fear and do it anyway, I'm sure.
Well, we do like to ask all our guests to try and set the scene by a career in 60 seconds. It rarely is 60 seconds, so don't feel too much pressure. But just a run through, start to finish, or start to current, I should say, of your career.
Well, I guess for me, I've never really been in a box. And so my career has spanned the public, the private, the political, the non-political, the kind of charitable, the commercial, and that's the joy of it for me. I'm very lucky, very, very early on to have worked in a consulting company looking at the internet, and that was transformational because not only was it a startup, so I could see how exciting startups were, but I was also learning about the internet, and I also met my co-founder in lastminute.com, Brent Hoberman. Lastminute.com was crazy. It's like having a one-hit wonder as a famous pop band. That's what it's like momentarily. And then I love sort of that I'm one of the only people to have survived the dot-com crash, and then in quick succession a real-world crash. My life changed forever when I fell out of a car in 2004. Not a career high, but it definitely structured my entire life, including my career, which is why at 35 I built the career of what I thought would be a 65, 75-year-old in a portfolio kind of set of things. Started a karaoke business, Lucky Voice. Did some work for the government, looking at how to help people get online, and then became the UK government's official digital champion, much to the hilarity of my friends. I loved that because I was doing work that I had not had exposure to before in politics, and was, I think, probably one of the things I'm proudest of is establishing gov.uk with the amazing team we set up there. And that gave me a taste for kind of this policy and commercial stuff. So then I applied to be a member of the House of Lords, and I did that, and that gave me an amazing opportunity to kind of speak on some of these issues, and again, just changes a bit of the way that you see the world and the access to information that you have to see the world. I have been on a funny selection of boards my whole life. First board I went on to was Channel 4 after lastminute.com, and then I was on the board of Marks and Spencer. I've been on the board of small companies like MyDeco. That was another thing that Brent started that turned into Made.com, but also charities that both started and been involved in, and my own charities as well. And then probably with the highest PTSD moment of my life, which was working at Twitter from 2016 to 2022. Not the whole time, but when we were very, very knee-deep in tussles with Elon. That's a whole other conversation. And then post that, I've been lucky enough to be the president of the British Chambers of Commerce until literally this month when my 3-year term ends, which has been fantastic. Been Chancellor of the Open University. I now sit on the boards of BA, Multiverse and Chanel. And what I love is the intersection of technology with all these different things. So whether it's societal issues, whether it's difficult institutions, or whether it's exciting new startups. And I feel very lucky to have spanned all that stuff. Used to make me super nervous that I couldn't really sum up my career in 1 minute. And the worst question people ask me is like, so what do you do now? And I can't answer it without sounding like a total ass. But now I'm just channeling it. I'm like, screw that. I'm a generalist. I'm lucky enough to see all these different things, always with a kind of digital backdrop.
Yeah. And it's
how long was that?
Do you know what? That was perfect. You've done it. Some people do it a lot longer. That was pretty good, Bob. That was pretty good.
Considering everything you've done.
That's an achievement. And we saw you most recently on the stage of Women in Work Summit. The Marilla Fostrop runs it, and you were on stage with Alex Mahon. So did you meet on the Chanel board? Oh, well, so Channel 4, I suppose, before that.
No, actually wasn't boss of Channel 4 when I was on the board. It was way before, a few CEOs before. No, I knew Alex anyway. She's friends of friends and then became a friend. And when Chanel, which is a very particular kind of company, looking for a very particular kind of non-exec, was looking, I suggested her name, and obviously
fabulous.
Much in the process because that would have been appropriate. But it's wonderful to work alongside someone you also really like.
Well, yeah, you were just both of you on stage at which was Powerhouse, and we'll come to some of that later bit. And also, you talked then about your the .com crash and then your actual personal crash. We will come on to that bit because obviously, as you say, that was a bit of a pivotal moment in your career. But if you don't mind, I'd kind of like to take you all the way back really to your childhood, and when we tried to do our research, and it obviously you were a great scholar. It sounds like your father
not a great scholar.
But you went to Oxford. You went to Magdalen College in Oxford, so I think you're pretty much a good.
Magdalen would say I was a great scholar.
Well, you did. But obviously, but it sounds like your upbringing was like a household of full of debate and ideas and exploration. And do you think? Well, actually, it comes up quite a lot that parents have a big impact on a lot of the guests that we've spoke to. But do you think that time with that home life did really shape how you approach life and business at that time, or was it just a lot of fun and a lot of debate?
I mean, no, I think the main thing it was an unbelievable amount of support and challenge, and I think that those two are very important. You shouldn't have one without the other, in my opinion. They go hand in hand. And when I look back on it now and I think about some of the kind of tools that those bits of your early life give you for later in life, just unequivocal love. My parents did separate, but there was never any question that we weren't completely supported and loved. But it wasn't always, just plain sailing. We were challenged. We were challenged academically. We were challenged to debate. We were challenged, my dad's idea of a holiday was to spend £5 on the entire holiday and the first night of the holiday to be sleeping on the floor of an airport. It was quite unconventional. So, but I think all those things where you're kind of pushed into extremes can be useful tools in later life. So I think it was those two bits. But also with a real kind of entrepreneurial bent, not traditional entrepreneurism, didn't build like a massive manufacturing business or have a global empire built from our sitting room. But my mum was an entrepreneur. She started a business with her best friend. My dad is an academic, yes, but he's also the gardening correspondent for the Financial Times, which he's written for 56 years.
Oh, wow. We should get him on, shouldn't we?
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. He started when he was 26. It's unbelievable. And he self-published books and had lots of sidelines of businesses, and so there was always a kind of unconventionality in our upbringing as well, even though obviously I was lucky kind of middle-class privileged background, so it was a whole hodgepodge of things like everybody. But I think that's, when I think about it now, I think it's just that support and challenge is where I think it
and that's good advice actually, because obviously we've got a lot of parents that bringing their own kids up and actually just trying to field through actually how do you create that environment at home where you say it's like that psychological safety, isn't it, of you've got your back but you've challenged and have a point of view, I suppose.
Yes, and also have some standards. I know that's not a very current thing to think, I think, but I believe in real excellence. I don't always achieve it, but I'm always saying this to my kids, like, just try your absolute best. And when they're rushing through their homework, I'm like, why do you want to rush it? What you should be trying to do is getting used to perfecting it. I mean, obviously they're trying to rush it, they're 9. But I keep trying to, they look at me like I'm completely demented. Completely demented. So rather than forcing them to do their homework like that, I try and lead by that example, as my partner does too. And so for me, life should be a lot of love, but also, an understanding that you've got to learn how to do things for yourselves. And the more effective you can be at doing those things and pushing yourself a bit, then the more exciting life can be.
Yeah. And we actually hear curious, don't we? Like, be curious, ask those questions.
Yeah. Ask questions. I think that's, when I think about being a board member, and I've been on so many strange boards and really literally every shape and size of board. I haven't seen everything, but I've seen a lot considering my strange kind of career. I do think that is probably the central thing about being a board member, is asking good questions. And it's something I think that people get wrong. I think people come onto a board and think, oh, I've got to kind of catch the management out, or I've got to, make my mark. And no, I think that's wrong. I think what we have to do is help the people in the room think about things in a different way. And if they leave like momentarily thinking about, oh, that issue, maybe I should approach it from that way, or that was interesting because it made me think about that, then that's having an impact, as well as obviously all the kind of governance stuff you always have to do. So yeah, I agree with you. Asking questions is really.
I think whenever I've sat in rooms where there's someone who's asking those very sort of purposeful questions that sort of dig away, you can't help it just uncovers information, doesn't it? Without almost trying, people just feel like they have to answer, and I think it's definitely a skill. I think. I think that just looking back to last minute, you're very successful one-hit wonder, as you put it. But I just wonder, at that time, you were both young yourself.
Brett was considerably older than me. He hates it when I say that. He's 5 years older than me, so I'm always teasing him.
Sorry, Brett. Yeah. But you were early in your career, and the internet was very young too. Yeah. So I'm just interested in that. When you thought about what was coming next, what did success look like for you then? What were you trying to become, did you think, in that sort of early stage?
I really wish I had a fabulously articulate and cogent answer to that question, but in the last 30 years I've never managed to come up with one. I genuinely have never really had a plan. I mean, I do try and map now. I've got this weird portfolio life. You do have to slightly map things and try and work out how things fit together in a jigsaw puzzle. But at that stage, it's like, this is exciting. Let's go.
Yeah.
And the plan was to get the website built. And then the plan was to get customers. And then the plan was to get more customers. And then the plan was, we have to take the company public. And then the plan was, not to collapse. It really wasn't thinking much beyond those immediate bits of entrepreneurial activity, and an absolutely relentless focus on what we were trying to build. So, I wish I could say, I definitely wanted to be a globally significant entrepreneur. I definitely did not. What I wanted to do is create the business because it was exciting and fun and the world was changing, and I just kind of looked ahead in that rather than looked ahead much beyond it.
We had Rory Sutherland on, didn't we?
Yeah.
He said careers are just a series of jobs that you retrofit into
to create the narrative of your life. It's like chance happenings can happen, and I actually think that's more motivating for listeners though, to hear that you don't have to have a 5-year plan. You just, like you say, focus, energy, an idea. I think it's relentless focus and energy though, isn't it, as well?
A little bit. And I do also think, being really good at what's in front of you, like, going back to this theme of excellence, but, there would not have been those opportunities for me if I hadn't really worked hard at Spectrum, the first job I got, this consulting company, and people gave me work because they knew I could do the work, and I do it well, and I do it smiling, and it was fun. And I think if you can do that in your career, just try and do the best in each thing. It doesn't mean you have to knock it out the park all the time. My God, I'm always making horrendous mistakes. But it does mean having a level of competence that is just reliable, then you have more opportunities presented to you, right? So then it becomes a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. And I think that's my plan, much more than I must do that thing. It's like my plan is to try and do a really good job at things and do things that have impact.
Yeah, and that's another theme that we've picked up through this podcast as well. It's like, that strive for excellence. Often we heard from Stephen Myron, actually, a bit that curious bit, no more than the person that's in the room with you. It's a bit like, just like, you've got to work hard at it. There's no easy route, is there, to success apart from hard work and grit. And I think, well, again, I mean, we were in a TV department at Zenith Media whilst you were basically designing and implementing a multi-million, billion company. But when you look back to those early days, and obviously like huge growth, you're expanding across geographies, across people, you were in the spotlight, as you say. Brent perhaps took the bit more of the maybe internal operations. You became the poster person of the internet and digital. Quite a big responsibility. When you look back to that, what type of coping mechanisms did you have? Was it just a lot of caffeine? Was it going to the pub with your mates? Like, I suppose how did you cope in those early days?
Yes. I really think that looking back on it now, and there's no regret. That's not how I approach my life. But I think that I definitely was super naive. And when I look back on it now, we were both quite naive, as were the structures around us, I think, to a degree. Because, Brent and I would be in a photo together or do an article together. And guess what? They'd just chop him out of the picture, because it was only quite exciting to have a slightly older white man doing a business, but it was super exciting to have a younger woman talking about technology. And, we went with it because we were getting free pages written in the papers and we had no marketing budget, and we would turn up to the opening of an envelope and I'd do an interview anywhere, and that was it. We were everywhere.
Sounds like us.
Yeah.
We're trying the same.
I knew it sounded familiar.
Yeah, and there was no social media, there was no smartphone at that point, right? There was no way of reaching people or building your own audience. You had to go through those traditional channels. And I wish in a way that I'd held a bit more of myself back, because I don't think I knew exactly how much of me it was becoming. And that was bad a bit for me, but quite a lot for the business, actually, because it was never an issue between me and Brent, because he's a very special person, but that wasn't right. It wasn't a good reflection of our business. And also, when I wanted to step back, it was marginally more complicated, extricating me from the brand and all those things. So I think it was naive, and I think partly I coped with it because I wasn't hyper aware of it. I know that sounds a weird thing to say, but I was so internally focused. And so my life was like doing lastminute.com, going home super late, thinking about lastminute.com, probably being called by Brent at 2 or 3 in the morning to say the website's gone down, and then going back to work at 8 in the morning. And that wasn't because we were like, we must work. It's just that's what we had to do, because that's why it was that hectic. And if I did ever go to a party or anything, it was, just with people that I really knew well who loved me, and they'd be like, where have you been, kind of thing. Yeah. Occasionally I had this strange thing when I'd walk down the street and someone would say, hello, Martha. I'd be like, that's so weird. I'm nobody technology entrepreneur, people know my name. So it would sometimes hit me. The only point at which it was hard was when we took the company public, and then the dot-com crash happened and the stock market blew up. And it was, it was not us. It wasn't just us. It was the US technology bubble that burst. And of course, companies were massively overvalued. But I got a lot of shit thrown at me for that. And I had some really, really horrible things written about me in the newspapers. And journalists that should really have known better wrote vile stuff. Somebody said I should be gunned down. And that was quite enough. You should heard enough from me, and someone should take a gun and shoot them, or something like that. Anyway, and I think, that moment of I was 29 at that point. It was really felt very fragile in the company. Everyone thought we were going to be squillion millionaires. Of course, we weren't. It was just, that's not the real world. We had, all those things. So it's like this mismatch of expectation and reality in every dimension, and that was hard. And I remember one day being in the office and just thinking, I can't do this, actually. I can't cope. And I remember saying to Brent, I can't do it. I feel completely overwhelmed. She's like, let's just go outside and have a walk. And we just got out of the office, walked and calmed down. And I just really remember that moment clearly. But, there were bits that were tough. And I remember particularly those few weeks after the crash happened, that it was very, very intense.
Yeah. And you think, because that's like the media, like they build you up just to break, to knock you down, don't they? And I just think that's just, that must have been, age 29. I mean, age at any age, that would have been, because you can't help but take that slightly personally, because you've got a whole business riding on you. Well, it was
personal. That's the point. It wasn't about the business. I mean, they all thought the business was ridiculous and should just blow up, but it was so personal. It was like, one very senior Times journalist who I know now wrote that I should go out in a burqa because no one wanted to see my face anymore. It was so endless and it was so personal. So yes, it is not. It's very hard not to take it personally when it was very personal. I couldn't even say it's about the business because it wasn't. It was about me, and I thought, have I screwed everything up here and all the rest of it? But it was okay. It was okay.
And actually, so you're one of the few companies actually that after the boss that you didn't go back. You carried on with and then sold it for 500 million 5 years later, or 4 years later. So but I can imagine that would have been a tough time.
I think so in our small little world that Rachel and I inhabit, we think about our business all the time, but it's the two of us. And how did that play? Because there must have been a million things that you had to think about all of the time with a site that's so public facing and at such scale. Like, did you try and disconnect at all, or was it for you? Was it, this is my business, I'm just going to be all in?
No, I definitely had a different relationship to Brent for sure. Like Brent he came up with the idea, and he gets his energy from focusing entirely on the. He got it from focusing entirely on the thing. I get my energy from the kind of outside world and then pulling it back into the thing.
Right,
so I knew that for me, and I didn't kind of recognize that at the time, but I recognize that now. It was very, very important for me to be able to, even if I did rock up at the party at 1 a.m, to still be able to have my friends around me. And they were so amazing. I'd invite them to our lastminute.com office parties and they'd always show up. Someone would always show up to support me. And I feel like some of those big moments where things were happening, I had people around me that weren't just lastminute.com. So that was really fundamental. I've also always had this kind of split personality in a way, not personality, but just interests. I did want to be a prison governor when I was younger. I really, really wanted to go into the Home Office and let everyone out of prison. But I didn't do well enough at university. You had to have I got a 2-2 and you had to get better than that to go into the fast track. So I was rejected from the Home Office. Probably lucky, looking back on it. But I always had an interest in criminal justice, and one of my best friends is a human rights lawyer, and we set up a human rights charity fighting the death penalty when I was doing lastminute.com round called Reprieve. I didn't set it up, so I was just an early trustee, but it was happening alongside it, and that was also very important to me to feel like still doing this kind of exactly. So that's how I get my energy. It didn't mean I hoped that I wasn't focused on the business. It just gave me more energy actually for the business, because I didn't feel like my world was just completely shrinking.
And is that do you like, just thinking about people who are in that sort of environment as well, do you think, is that something you can teach, or do you think you just naturally sort of gravitate to either the Brent direction or your direction?
I know that it's very fashionable to say that you have to be kind of totally obsessed with your product, but I think you can be without making it be no, that's not the right language. I think it's absolutely right that to be a success, you have to have a level of obsession and hard work. It doesn't just happen, as we just discussed. Absolutely. But how you get that level of attention and detail and focus in your own brain, I think happens in lots of different ways. I think that's probably the difference. And so for me, I have more energy, as I said, from doing some other things occasionally, whereas other people might have approached it differently. But I think it is about working out what gives you your motivation and energy.
And we've spoken about that in a podcast before. It's all about, so it's balance. Like I talk about balancing your mind, your heart, your body and your soul. And if one of those like pieces of legs of a stool is out of kilter, then you can't actually perform in any of it. So I can hear a lot from you, like purpose really drives your heart and your soul, doesn't it? As much as it does your head as well. So I think, as you say, it was important that you had that outlet to be able to then come back to last minute and perform there. And when you think back to that just rapid early success, did that teach you, I suppose, in business, like just you got mature, because a lot of experience, you became quite mature as a business operator because you had such early success? Or was it almost, it all happened so fast that you didn't have enough time to reflect, therefore almost delaying a little bit of that business maturity? It's a
funny combination. So I feel like I had some experiences that just by doing, you do get that maturity. So, not everyone takes a company public. It's a very particular process. I know it was a very particular time, but I do think that I learned through that process a lot. And I know that I'm a better board member or advisor or whatever to people who are facing into that process because I have some understanding of what it was like. So there's just no question. And lots of people never go through that in their life, but they're probably way more successful business people than me. But that kind of discrete activity, relatively discrete, and being a public company and that process of it, not as a shareholder, not as a board member, but as an actual founder, CEO transition into public, I get that process. So that, I think I did really learn from that. I also think that the entrepreneurial journey, well, completely different in so many ways now, because of the tools that you have and the way you can build and the access to capital and all the different things in Europe now. There is just something at its core that you learn because you have to learn to do the things that are a bit uncomfortable. So we talk about this all the time, Brent and I, but we had to get product to sell, right? And we just divided it up. He's like, okay, you take hotels and I'll take some airlines, you take these packages. And we just had to call them. They didn't have any idea who we were. No idea.
That's
we had to
crazy.
call them, we had to build relationships, we had to get them to give us rooms. or airline seats
Yeah.
or packaged tour products. And that was freaking hard work. And we just had to keep calling, right? We didn't call once. We didn't call twice. We called 3. We called 10, 20
Persistent. You were persistent.
all the time.
Yeah.
And we had to do it in a way that wasn't going to be, mean that they never want to take our calls again and all that stuff. And I do worry sometimes that we've lost a bit of that, like that absolute hustle that you just have to have.
We've lost a lot of it.
Yeah.
You can't WhatsApp. You have to do it. You have to
Yeah.
call the person.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan in talking to strangers. That's another thing the poor 9-year-olds are always facing. It's like, go and do that thing. Go and ask that person that question.
Yeah.
I think it's really important not to feel like you can't hustle a bit.
Yeah.
And I think Brent would probably say this about the woman from Alitalia, but I would say it about Halldór Halldórsson from Icelandair, who I must have called and visited about 60 times. Poor man. And in the end, he's just like, leave me alone. I'm not going to do the accent. I will give you a flight to New York via Reykjavik for £99. But I was like, oh my God, that was transformational. You could go to New York for £99.
Yeah. I remember that because you did a great job of doing the IPO because we bought. I think the entire TV department of Zenith Media bought, faxed them through to whatever our broker was. I mean, there was a piece of paper somewhere, I'm sure. But
I just wanted to sorry to be geeky about this, but I'm thinking like you were so new into the internet when you went to speak to a hotel or an airline. Like, did they even know how to sort of pass the inventory over to you? How did you make that sort of slightly?
No, we had to. It was all by fax. I mean, it was completely and totally unelectronic. A bit less with airlines because the airlines you can connect into the airline booking systems.
Yeah.
But generally, we had to work through a travel agent because we weren't ourselves licensed. So that was complex. And then basically it was fax. So they'd say they had 2 or 3 or 4 rooms left that night. They'd fax me that quota. And then if we sold one, I'd fax them back. I mean, it was just...
Wow, that is unbelievable.
E-commerce in quotation marks. Yeah, it wasn't e-commerce. It was fax machines.
Wow.
And so obviously our podcast is Mentor. And we're always interested in, certainly probably at that stage, were there people that... How did you see mentorship? Like, how did you lean on it or not lean on it? Obviously, we've heard a lot about partnerships. So Brent, I'm sure... to some extent was fulfilling that role.
Being so considerably older than me, he was kind of a mentor.
He's so old, Brent.
5 years.
He's really old.
Wow, yeah.
I love you, Brent, for listening. I mean, obviously, that was the other thing I was going to say when you asked me about coping, and I forgot to say, when you start a business with a friend, I mean, I guess it can go many ways, right? And although we were good friends at work, our social circles were quite different. But it was very different having that emotional kind of help in the business. And I don't mean because everything was triggering me left, right and centre. I mean it just because being able to go and have a chat with someone that understands you beyond the task at hand was brilliant. So yeah, he was a mentor and a coach.
And not judging you, importantly, I think.
No.
I think
yeah, exactly. And also genuinely, I mean, real love there. So he cared that I was okay and I cared that he was okay. So that was really important to me. I think that beyond that, my first boss, Kip Meek, who started Spectrum, has always been an influence on me. He'd laugh if he heard that. But he was just a man of very high integrity. And that's very important, obviously, in everything. But I think it's a very clarifying thing when you see someone acting with real integrity for their clients, for their employees, in the world in general. We had board members and people and early investors. There was a woman that invested in us called Linda Levinson, who was an American investor. She ran Amex for ages. And obviously finding a woman who understood about what it was like to be a woman in business and was so generous with me. She's always been a real inspiration. So they were the immediate last minute people. I've always kind of latched on to people in my career, and I think that's super helpful, not necessarily in a kind of formal way or saying, please be my mentor. But there's always been people that I've just enjoyed because they either have different points of view or they're very different backgrounds. To give an example, I was on the board of Marks and Spencer with Jan du Plessis, who at that time was the chairman of British American Tobacco and then Rio Tinto. Not businesses that I had ever thought I would brush up against, and not, businesses that's which, quite complicated. I'll just leave it at that. But he is brilliant. And again, a person of really high integrity. And I've learned a lot from him about how to navigate, complex board situations and how to be in different spaces. So I have lunch with him occasionally. So, there are people that you meet that you just think, I can learn something from you. And you kind of use them in light touch ways or, social ways that can be helpful.
We've heard that, haven't we? Quite informal. One of our guests talked about pizza and a glass of wine. Just like have a bit of a chin wag, or go for lunch, because most people are pretty generous with their time, and they want to help, don't they?
That's exactly what I was going to say, and I just think it's always worth asking someone. Always, because in my experience, most people will say yes, and give them a really light way of doing it. I often say to people, could you just give me 15 minutes? Because I'd love to just talk this thing through with you.
Yeah.
I was facing a bit of a kind of challenge with something I was doing, or not quite a moral question, but a little bit of a moral question. I just said to someone I really respect, can I just have 15 minutes with you on this? And I knew that anything more than that, lunch was going to be too long, whatever.
Yeah.
I think those kinds of things can be also very helpful, and make you also very have to focus exactly what you're trying to get out of it.
Yeah, and it's rewarding on both sides, isn't it? As a mentor and a mentee, I think both sides really get something out of it. So just to change gear sounds actually, I didn't mean it in that way. I was just...
Change gear and probably the whole fly through the windscreen. Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah, so I didn't... Sorry about that, but just to say, we touched it. So 2004, you were involved in a hideous car accident. I mean, near fatal. We've read that you had to be put in an induced coma. Really bloody scary.
I wasn't actually, but was I? I can't remember. Not only
that was in our research. But anyway,
almost to fly me back, I think.
But almost fatal. And of course, coming out of that, I think we read that you said, look, your sense of time and ambition fundamentally changed. And actually, I think it was the year after you sold Last Minute, didn't you?
No, it was the year before.
The year before, so 2004. So, I suppose what parts of your, I suppose, ambition did you leave any, or what? How did that shape you now to think, okay, from this day forward, I'm going to operate in this way was different or not different to how you had before?
I mean, firstly, there was no from this day forward, because I had no idea what the next day was going to be like, and I still sometimes don't, to be honest. So that's the first thing. It's like the lack of certainty, and I think that now, 20 years on from the accident, I've got a bit more clarity about what the impact is, and I guess I myself feel less anxious about even saying that I've got disabilities. Before I used to hate it. I'm like, I don't want to be defined by this thing, and now I'm just like, no, it's actually probably a good thing to recognise, and maybe it'll help even for other people, let alone yourself. But I think that's the thing that changed so substantially, was just this consistency point. And I'm still in and out of hospital, and still things happen, and so what was taken off the table was an executive role, because I need flexibility. I can really commit to things and still, I hope, do big things and work super hard, but it has to be on slightly different terms, on my terms. And that's not because I'm frail, it's just because shit happens, and I need more bandwidth in different ways to other people. And that, I think, was the most fundamental reframing. But to be honest, for the first year of the accident, I was in hospital. The next 18 months, I had literally no idea whether I was going to be in a wheelchair, what was going to happen. So my ambition was to stand up. My ambition was to learn to walk. My ambition was to try and get out of hospital. And then I started to think, okay, maybe I'm going to be able to do some stuff, and what might a world look like that I can do things in.
I just want, just to sort of side, you obviously do a lot of interviews, you do lots of, does that accident, do you get sick of talking about it, or do you sort of place it as a part of your story that shaped who you are? How do you think about that now? Because I was thinking when we were researching this, I'm like, maybe you're sick of talking about,
I mean, I'm not. It's a bit like saying you're sick of talking about your children. No, it's just such a fundamental part of me. It's like, it is my life in some ways. But what I don't like is when I feel as though it's defined me in terms of capability somehow, and I think that's what lots of disabled people face, right? Like if you're in a wheelchair, I think people do still think, oh, she's probably a bit less able to do a thing. I mean, obviously less able to climb a flight of stairs, but that's not me. I walk with 2 sticks, and I'm still pretty physically fit. I have a different kind of set of challenges, and I think that's what winds me up sometimes, is this notion that I'm sort of frail because of it, as opposed to no, I'm inconsistent. So I don't mind talking about it, because it is so much at my core, and I think what I'm more at peace with now, I'm so old, is that...
So old. You're not so old at all.
Is that, I'm teasing, I'm 53 in 2 weeks. It feels pretty old right now.
Happy birthday for 3 weeks.
I'm just exiting 53, and it's been fine.
Yeah, I will be
Fine,
shortly.
I want
I'll be
fine.
shortly.
Fabulous.
Oh, it's fabulous.
Oh, it's been a year of my life.
Every
Best
year
year
get-
of my life.
Every year gets better.
There
And
you
I
go.
think,
So I'm not sick of talking about it. I
no,
think it's just,
I'm sure in a lot of ways it kind of makes you stronger, actually, more determined. I can imagine, as you say, every step you're taking, just having to build that resilience and determination that I'm going to, I'm just every day I'm going to, make sure I've pushed through. And did you have a good group of people around you to help you through that time?
Oh my God, yes. And to come back to another reason I'm not sick of talking about it to some degree is because I do think, or I perceive, that there has been obviously a phenomenal shift in some ways about people being able to access mental health language or talk about things more openly, or appreciate that people have a whole range of different things facing them, which is fantastic. But I do also think, it's a bit our conversation earlier, we mustn't lose sight of the fact that some of life is just tough. You can't design around some bits of it that are just a bit tougher. And sometimes awful things happen. And lots of people in the world right now are living in pretty appalling situations, facing horrendous things. And if we try to design life around just the nice parts, then I don't think we're going to do such a good job of being human beings. So that resilience piece and how you build it, and it's not just something that happens, it's not just magic, you have to work at it, is I think really important. And that, for me, to answer your question finally, yes, I had amazing people around me from two angles. Amazing professional people helping me. I had one of the world's most amazing trauma surgeons when I first went to John Radcliffe in Oxford, who put me back together. Amazing South African orthopedic surgeon called Mr. Keys, who sadly then died about 15 years ago, which was awful. And I don't think he ever thought he'd see me walking. I remember he was 6'5", huge guy. When he first saw me walking, he cried. And I just thought, well, I guess it's quite nice, because what's people he deals with, he probably sees dead, not walking. So knowing that was a trajectory anyway. So he was amazing. So lots of amazing professional people. And then the extraordinary network of friends that I don't think I spent a single day in my time in hospital without someone coming to visit me.
Oh,
Not
lovely.
one,
Well,
no one's
lovely.
Well, that's testament to you, Martha. Obviously.
No, it isn't. One of my friends sent me a card every single day so that I get something
nice.
in the post. People would come and they'd show movies on the ceiling of the hospital room, because at that point I was pinned to the bed in my big metal cage thing, and they brought a projector and they would show movies on the ceiling. I really remember that. So many moments where in probably some of the worst things you can imagine happening to you as a human being physically, there were still moments of levity and joy that people were helping me have.
Moments to cherish.
We had I don't know if you've come across him, Bruce Daisley, who talks a lot.
Yes, of course. No, I know Bruce from Twitter.
And he was, of course, you're Twitter.
Yeah.
And he talks about how resilience is actually, because it's often associated with an individual and an individual being resilient, but he talks about resilience sort of coming out of groups, and groups, make resilience happen. So it sounds like that was an example of it.
Exactly right. And also it gives you purpose to, resilience in my mind is also tied up with purpose and feeling like there is something to keep fighting for that small goal, whether it's just getting to lunchtime or it might be a bigger one. Yeah. But that wider group also gives you that, doesn't it? Because you want to be there and be present for the people around you too.
Yeah, exactly.
And actually that leads nicely on in terms of, so you're obviously doing a lot of public service type roles. Let's put it unscientifically like that. And I think I know the answer to this, but I wonder, was your change in circumstances through this time, did that lead you down that path? Did it change how you saw the world away from perhaps a more commercial lastminute.com world to giving back, or was it always there underneath the surface that you probably were going to get to it at some point?
Yeah, I think more that. I think I don't really think for me, and maybe some people have oh my God, this has shown me this over here and I'm now going to be a completely different person. Yeah. I don't feel that. I feel like it prioritized things slightly differently and definitely gave me less, not anxiety, but just more of a capacity to say, no, that noise is noise. I'm not so interested in that. Yeah. I'm very lucky I made some money from lastminute.com. Other people might have said, right, I'm going to turn that money into 100 million. I'm going to turn that 100 million. That was never going to be that's not the person I ever was going to be. And so it just made it more clear that that's not what I wanted to do. And similarly, as I said, I did really genuinely want to go and be a prison governor. So I guess this gave me kind of a bit more flex to think about, okay, am I going to do some more of this stuff? So back to the not having a plan, I'm just lucky that opportunities arose. And, while being trying to be a karaoke entrepreneur and start Lucky Voice, I got a call from Number 10 saying Gordon Brown wanted me to come and help him think about technology. So I'm just super lucky that those things have happened.
And so Julian Douglas, he's a friend of ours as well. So you co-founded it with him, And you're 20. I saw a poster. Have you just turned 20?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that. I can't remember what street I'm walking down.
What was
We've all been to Lucky Voice, haven't we?
What was the inspiration? Where did that spring
from? The inspiration was some friends of mine knew a bunch of other people who worked in advertising. They were always going to karaoke, and we used to go out together and go there. And then me being me, I said, we should do this. We should do this better. This is so crappy going to behind a Japanese restaurant with a fire. And Julian was one of the first people, another guy called Johnny. And then, so we just talked about it a bit. And then I started it with a guy called Nick and some of my money to get going. And
it's still going now.
And I love Japan, and that was always a place I really enjoyed visiting. So.
Lost in Translation.
I was going to say Lost in Translation.
One of my favourite movies.
Yeah, amazing. Oh gosh, we've all been in a late night bar, haven't we? And so we are going to be. I think we're going to be at it's 5 or 10 minutes left. So I just wanted to just go back in terms of your we talked about your entrepreneurial spirit, and we do have a lot of I'd say ambitious young entrepreneurs that tune in. And I suppose if you reflect back and think about they're starting their own journey, kind of what advice or core pieces, I suppose, advice from your own journey, either what you learned or what you did right or what you did wrong. What advice would you give to, I suppose, young entrepreneurs starting out on their own journey today? Being very different to obviously the climate that you did last minute. I mean, as you said, social media's everywhere, accessibility, technology, it's quite a different.
Yeah,
the core things.
And the technology is much, much better.
Yeah,
right?
way better.
You can build stuff practically without having the same teams at all. I mean, I think the first thing is design for the world that's happening, right? That's the first thing I'd say. We're now living in an AI first world.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean AI only. It doesn't mean I want everything to be robots, not at all. But being very, very tough on what the modern tools are that you've got access to. That's the first thing I would always say to an entrepreneur. And that doesn't just have to be in the tech business. Just try and start from the mindset of 2028 rather than 2024, because that would already put you in an advantage. Yeah. And the second thing is, I'd say, which again is even a bit different to when we were starting, is start building, because I think everything starts to happen when you can start to show your product or show what it is you're doing. Of course, you will need capital in at some point, but do as much as you can early on, because that is what people are looking for, to see that kind of drive, that determination, how much you can corral resources and get going. So design for the future we're going to rather than what we've come from. Get going with the product, but then the biggest thing by miles, which is so obvious, but it's like it really is about the people. And I made bad hiring decisions, bad decisions, because I thought we needed a big fancy blah person, but actually that wasn't quite the fit we needed. Or I'd recruited my own shadow because I thought, they seem nice. I'd like to be friends with them. Yeah. Well, that's really completely unhelpful when you're trying to run a travel agency ticketing team. I mean, it's like, so really, really hiring the best people and putting so much attention into that. And also people better than you, because it's vital to surround yourself when you're an entrepreneur. You don't know everything, and bringing people on board that can help you work those questions out. So design for the future, start building the product. Time on the team is never, ever time wasted. And then never lose sight of your values. It's so fundamental, isn't it? That whatever they are for you, for me, there'll be a set of things, but for someone else, there'll be something else, but just keeping hold of that in it.
Yeah. And I think it's like just holding on to, I mean, our values in our business are be smart, be kind, have integrity. And it just helps you, kind of pulls you back to decisions that you make, the way that you want to interact with the business and talent. Like we work as a talent agency in terms of consultants and exec search, and as you say, any time spent on talent is not wasted, because you make a wrong decision, it's better to take the time to hire properly. And again, we've heard it, hire for diversity of thought, different thinkers. You can't all be the same. But we've all had certain, we've all made mistakes, haven't we? We've all made mistakes. I think it's also to kind of like but move quickly, make swift decisions and move quickly. But that's amazing advice. We'll be trying to remember that to say in the top of this podcast. Listen out to Martha's top 4 advice for starting your own business. We'll get that in.
I wonder, the values were something that's important to you. Did you ever come into conflict with those values were there times when,
I've come into conflict with those values, of course, because there were times, at the IPO, probably one of the first times where Brent and I both felt very uncomfortable that what was happening here was, I don't want to say corruption, but now I've done that classic thing a politician says, I don't want to say you were corrupt, X, Y, Z, other politician. But, how banks sell, it's pretty freaking dodgy. We'll buy some of this stock and pump the price up for you in the initial day. Yeah. We know that's not where the stock's going to trade in another 6 months, but you flip it, you'll make some money. You can have that chunk of shares. Those things made us both feel quite uncomfortable. And it wasn't anything illegal if everybody was doing it, but that's not great. That was one first time I thought, this whole financial piece is making me uncomfortable. I remember when I had to fire the whole customer service team because we were outsourcing them to India. And that was tough because that was a team I'd built myself. Of course, Brent was there too, but that was a bit more my direct responsibility. But it was just absolutely clear we couldn't afford the model that we had. And that time, everybody was outsourcing to India. I had to stand up in front of them and say, this is what's happening. And literally, it was like murdering a bunch of puppies. I hated that. Yeah. So that lastminute.com days, I don't think you can be on a board from 2010 to be on board, from 2007 to 2026 without being in quite a lot of conflict with lots of different things. It's a complex world, governance challenges, political challenges, CSR challenges, inclusion challenges. So I think that's a whole other podcast maybe, but
yeah. You can come on again, Martha. We'd love to have you. And on that note, just as we kind of bring this to the end, and we often find that it becomes quite reflective on this podcast as you're forced to sit there and think about your career, and often the best guidance does come from that moment you're able to take a bit of a step back and think about the whole picture. But if you were to now rewind all the way back to 24-year-old Martha, what advice do you think you would give to her, knowing all that you know now?
Oh, this is too parochial. It's not helpful for anyone else. For that, no question, for me personally, I'd say wear your seatbelt, because that would have changed the trajectory of everything.
Yeah.
Well, it's still valuable.
That's not help.
No, it is. No, that's really. No,
but it's in that. It's probably get. So I think the other thing I'd say is, I really reject this whole crap. Bring your whole self to work. Be your authentic self. That's bollocks. Just do your job really well and be a kind person. I don't want to have to feel like you have to bring my whole self all the time. I think it's really important that you go to work to do your work and you do it super well. And people around you will be nice. You'll be nice to people around you. If you're in an environment you don't like, get out of that environment. But I don't think it's necessarily very helpful to make this notion that work has to be everything and you have to be everything you are at work. It's actually, I think, quite valuable to keep something back. And I've been super lucky in many ways because my entrepreneurial journey has given me this platform to a degree and all the rest of it. But it came at some points with a cost. And I think that keeping a bit of yourself back is a good deal.
Yeah. Well, on that, Martha, thank you so much for not keeping yourself back today. You've been really...
Well, I haven't learned my lesson.
Really? Well, no, we didn't see all... No, we saw glimmers of your cat.
We saw the
cat. We've seen a bit of the cat. But honestly, Martha, that was so inspirational. Can't thank you enough. Thank you so much. Good luck in your next endeavours, and we'll be watching with interest. Right. Lots of love. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Sadly, that's all we've got time for, Marco. If you enjoyed this conversation, please do subscribe to Mentor. Share it, follow it, do all those things. I don't know, all those things. Just please do it. It helps, apparently, a lot.
Like it.
Yeah, like it, share it. And share with someone navigating their own leadership path. And don't forget, if you do need some wisdom in your business, then be sure to come to TheZoo.London, Consultant Collective and Executive Search. And we'd love to hear all about your mentors. So please do find us on our socials, drop us a line, all listed in the podcast description. And a big thank you to Viral Tribe Entertainment Production And join us next time for more Pills of Wisdom from Mentor.